Have you ever heard of a pig being put on trial for murder, or a group of weevils being legally excommunicated from a vineyard? It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but for centuries in medieval Europe, this was a reality. Animal trials, or zoological jurisprudence, were a very real and very serious part of the legal system. So, what on earth was going on? Why were people dragging pigs, rats, and even insects into court? Let's dive into the bizarre world of medieval animal trials. First, we need to understand the medieval mindset. In their world, the line between humans, animals, and the divine was much blurrier than it is for us today. They believed in a divinely ordered universe where every creature, big or small, had a place and a purpose set by God. This order was sacred. So, when an animal committed a crime like a pig mauling a child or a swarm of locusts devouring a crop, it wasn't just a random, tragic event. It was seen as a disruption of God's natural and moral order, and that disruption had to be corrected through a formal, legal process. These trials weren't just a kangaroo court either. They were surprisingly elaborate. There were two main types of animal trials. The first was for domestic animals, like pigs, horses, or cows, that had directly harmed a person. These were treated like criminal trials for humans. The accused animal would be arrested, held in a jail cell, often the same ones used for people, and then brought before a secular court. They were even assigned a lawyer for their defense, and these lawyers took their jobs seriously. There are records of lawyers arguing that their pig client was provoked, or that their donkey was simply acting in one famous case in 15th century France. A lawyer defending a group of rats argued that his clients could impossibly attend their court summons because they were justifiably afraid of the court's cats. And guess what? The judge actually considered the argument. The goal was to ensure justice was properly served, demonstrating that the community was taking the breach of order seriously. If found guilty, the animal would be sentenced, usually to public execution by hanging or burning, mirroring the punishments for human criminals. The second type of trial was for vermin or pest creatures like rats, locusts, or weevils that caused widespread damage to crops. These cases weren't handled by secular courts, but by ecclesiastical or church courts. Since you can't exactly arrest a swarm of insects, the process was different. The church would issue a formal summons, sometimes read aloud in the fields where the pests were causing trouble. A legal representative would be appointed to speak for the animals. The arguments in these cases were often theological. The lawyer for the pests might argue that these creatures were also God's creation, just trying to survive. The prosecution, representing the villagers, would argue that they were agents of the devil, sent to punish the people for their sins. If the animals were found guilty, the sentence wasn't execution. Instead, the church court would formally curse them and order them to leave the area. In some cases, they were even excommunicated, officially cast out from the Christian community. Sometimes, the court would even assign the pests a new plot of land to move to, a sort of court-ordered relocation program for insects. So, why go through all this trouble? It comes down to a few key reasons. First, it was about restoring order. By putting an animal on trial, the community was reasserting human control over a world that often felt chaotic and dangerous. It was a way of making sense of tragedy and disaster. Instead of a random plague of locusts, it was a legal problem with a legal solution. Second, these trials were a form of public spectacle and education. The public execution of a guilty pig sent a powerful message. This is what happens when God's order is violated. It reinforced social and moral norms. It was also a way for the legal and religious authorities to demonstrate their power and importance in the community. They were the ones who could mediate between the human world and the divine and restore balance. And finally, there was a genuine belief in animal culpability, based on passages from the Bible, like in Exodus, where an ox that gores a person must be stoned. They believed animals could be held morally responsible for their actions. It wasn't just a show. For many, it was a necessary and logical response to a crime. While the idea of putting a caterpillar on trial seems absurd to us today, it made perfect sense within the medieval worldview. It was a fascinating intersection of law, religion, and a deep-seated need for order in a chaotic world. These trials show us just how different their understanding of justice, nature, and the animal kingdom was from our own. So the next time you see a pigeon stealing your fries, just be glad you don't have to take it to court. Thanks for watching. If you found this dive into medieval history interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more weird and wonderful stories from the past. See you next time.